Okay, welcome to the makeup lecture for March 10th. This is for Economics 231 and 232. This is Dr. Yowie. And the first thing we're going to talk about is an increase in supply. That is where we shift the curve to the right. You can see here I have S, and we shift the curve to this blue S prime. If you haven't bought some colored pencils, I recommend you get some colored pencils, okay? That way you can easily see those shifts. So that's an increase in supply. It goes to the right. A decrease in supply, that's where we shift the curve to the left. A decrease in supply might occur because of increase in resource costs or resource prices, and we'll go over that in a minute. There we shift the curve to the left. Now the things that can cause a change in supply, move me over here, not that important. Okay, what can cause a supply curve to shift? If you look here, I've got all the things that cause that shift in the curve listed. Number of sellers in the market, direct relationship. So an increase in the number of sellers in the market will cause an increase in supply. Increase the number of sellers, increase supply. Decrease the number of sellers, decrease supply. They move in the same direction. We do the direct dance. Technology, an improvement in technology directly related to supply. So we increase technology, we'll increase supply. Decrease technology, we decrease supply. These are things we've gone over in class already. And the reason that an increase in technology will increase supplies because an increase in technology means I can make the same amount of output with fewer inputs, say less labor. As a result of that, that will decrease total cost for any given amount of output, while at the same time, total revenue does not change. You do not care how much labor went into producing, say, a cup of lemonade on a hot summer's day. That doesn't determine how much you're willing to pay for that lemonade or how many cups you're willing to buy. That's dependent on your taste and how hot it is and how cold the lemonade is, etc. Okay? So, if we decrease total cost and we don't affect revenues, total profit is equal to total revenue, which stays unchanged, minus total cost, which went down. So you got the same number minus a smaller number. That makes total profits at any given amount of output increase. If profit at any given amount of output increases, you'll supply more of the good or service at any given price. That, by definition, is an increase in supply. The next thing we have are resource prices. Resource prices, it should be red. I don't know why it didn't come out red. But resource prices, resource prices, there's an inverse relationship between resource prices. So in a case of a lemonade business, if the cost of labor, say wage rates go down from $10 an hour to $8 an hour, that would cause an increase in the supply of lemonade. That is because, again, a decrease in resource prices, say the price of labor, causes total cost at any given amount of output to drop. Total revenue, is not dependent on how much we pay our workers. You don't care how much the man who squeezed the lemonade made. All you care about is how hot it is and how thirsty you are and how good the lemonade tastes. So revenues stay the same. Those total costs go down. We're subtracting a smaller number because wage rates went down from the same total revenue. That means total profit at any given amount of output goes up. It is now more profitable to produce any given amount of lemonade. If it's more profitable to produce output, you're going to supply more output at any given price. And that, again, is by definition an increase in supply. So if resource prices go down, we're going to increase the supply of lemonade. It's more profitable. People are going to supply more at any given cost. On the other hand, what if, say, the price of lemons goes up? That's going to cause total cost at any given amount of output to increase. Our revenues stay the same. Total profit's going to go down at any given amount of output. And an increase in resource prices, say the price of lemons for a lemonade business, will cause supply to decrease. Okay, so there's an inverse relationship between resource prices, say wages, and output. If wages go up, supply goes down. If wages go down, supply goes up. The next thing we have here are taxes. There's an inverse relationship between taxes and supply. Okay, to explain that, I've done that on this little yellow pad you can see in the upper right-hand corner. Let's see if I can make that bigger for you. I can't. If you look here, I've got total profit is equal to total revenue minus total cost, but then inside the bracket here, I put plus taxes. To a business, taxes are nothing more than a cost. The only difference between taxes and any other cost, say wages or the price of lemonades for our lemonade business, is that when we pay taxes, we don't get anything directly back for the money. It's not like you say, oh, here's $100,000 in taxes, build a road out in front of my business. You pay the taxes, and then the government gives you back what they want, if they want to give you back anything. So maybe if they want to build a better road or repave the road out in front of your business, they will, but it's not directly tied to your paying your taxes. They don't have to do it. So here, if taxes go up, that causes everything inside of this bracket, total costs stay the same, but your taxes increase. So that makes this bracket bigger. Now you're subtracting total revenue, which does not change. So we're going to put a straight line over revenue. You don't care how much taxes a business paid when you decide how much lemonade to buy or what price to pay for it. But everything in this bracket here goes up because the taxes went up. So you're subtracting a bigger number from the same total revenue. That's going to cause total profit at any given level of output to go down. If it's less profitable to produce any given level of output, you're going to produce less output and offer it for sale at any given price. And that is by definition a decrease in supply. So if we look here, a decrease in taxes would cause an increase in supply. Think of gasoline taxes. If they reduce the taxes on a gallon of gas, that would make producing and getting gasoline to the gas station in front of your house more profitable. Therefore, firms would supply more gas at any given price. Okay. On the other hand, if they increase the prices of taxes, you can see here that that would make it less profitable to produce a gallon of gasoline and have it delivered to the gas station near your house. So that would make it less profitable to produce any given level of output. And because of that, that would cause a decrease in supply. So there is an inverse relationship between taxes and supply. If we increase taxes, we're going to decrease supply. Decrease taxes, we're going to increase supply. So they move in opposite directions. This only is common sense, right? If they tax something, you get less of it. Okay? If you reduce those taxes, you'll get more of it. And that's very relatable to subsidies. A subsidy is the opposite of a tax. Instead of making you pay a dollar every time you produce a gallon of gasoline, in this case, the government would give you a dollar every time you produce a gallon of gasoline. So total profit is equal to, and I'll show you here, I'll write it all out. So total revenue is equal to, total profit is equal to total revenue at any given level of output plus the subsidy of that output. So this is what we make from selling to our customers. This is the dollar for every gallon of gasoline we get, minus your total cost at any given level of output. Initially, subsidies don't affect total cost. But if we increase subsidies, that increases the amount of money we take in every time we produce a unit, or say a gallon of gas. So this whole thing goes up. That stays the same. I got a bigger number minus the same number as before. That's going to cause total profit to go up. So if you increase subsidies or subsidize a good, you'll get more of it at any given price, and that is by definition an increase in supply. S here in my little equation is subsidies, a subsidy. And there, the government pays you every time you produce or sell a unit of good. One example of subsidies in our economy right now would be electric cars. Under the Obama administration, they passed a bill that if you produce an electric car, when you sell it, the government will pay you a subsidy. And this has allowed people like Elon Musk to sell electric cars at a much cheaper price than they would without the subsidy. So maybe they need $45,000 here to make a profit. They could sell the car for $40,000, get an $8,000 subsidy. 48,000 minus 44,000 or 40,000, the producer would make an $8,000 profit for every car purely because of the subsidy. And that would cause supply to increase. If you subsidize something, you get more of it. So we're back over here. If we increase subsidies, that's going to increase supply. More electric cars will be supplied at any given price. And that's because the government is paying, in addition to what you pay for the car, say $40,000, then they're giving Elon Musk and Tesla an $8,000 subsidy. So maybe it cost him $42,000 to make the car. He sells it for $40,000. That would normally be a $2,000 loss. He'd never produce enough cars to drop the price to $40,000. But because he's got this $8,000 subsidy coming in, he'll make a profit selling the cars at $40,000. So more will be supplied than would if the subsidy wasn't there. If you cut or eliminate subsidies, that will decrease supply. With Tesla, there's only a fixed number of cars that each producer can sell and get the subsidy. And Tesla is almost at the end of their subsidy. When that happens, no longer will Elon Musk be able to make a profit selling an electric car at $40,000 because it cost him $42,000 to make in this case, right? So now he'll make a loss. The only reason he was making a profit was because he was getting this $8,000 subsidy. If that goes, he will not produce enough cars to drive the price down to $40,000. He'll produce fewer cars at any given price once that subsidy ends. A lot of analysts hate Tesla. I personally think Tesla is a boondoggle. And the main reason is because the only reason he's even able to claim to make a profit on those cars is because of the subsidy. But that subsidy is going to go away. The government will stop giving him those checks pretty soon after he sells a certain number of cars. Then he's going to have to make it on his own. And he does not appear to be able to keep his costs down low enough to make these cars profitable and to sell them at a price low enough to get people to buy them rather than buy a gas-fueled car. Okay? So if you're me, I'm looking at Tesla, I'm going, they're making much of a profit. If they're making a profit at all, they certainly aren't paying any dividends. And in the next couple of years, they're going to have to make some big changes, or else they're going to go out of business. And they're bleeding cash already. Just imagine what's going to happen when they don't have the subsidy. So that's how you could use this, for example, to look at investments. Say, I want to go into an industry and I say, oh, the industries where they're subsidized, those are great. But what happens when the subsidy goes away? Is that company able to stand on its own without the government paying it a subsidy? Okay, that's the question people have to ask with Tesla, is once the government stops paying them $8,000 or whatever it is per car, right? Are they still going to be able to make cars profitable and make it at a price low enough to compete? Also with Tesla, there's a lot of other companies out there that are developing electric cars that maybe are better than his. And they can sell them at a lower price that's more competitive. And they all have those subsidies because they haven't used them yet. But Elon Musk has already used his up. So he's got kind of a double-barrel shotgun looking at him. Next, and this is really interesting, If you think about taxes and subsidies, if you tax something, you get less of it. If you subsidize something, you get more of it. That's how we raise our children, right? If your children are good and they do their chores and they do work around the house and they're polite, and they make good decisions, we reward them with more free time, with more with allowance, right? Better treatment. On the other hand, if a child doesn't clean their room, doesn't do extra chores around the house, isn't pleasant, doesn't make good decisions with their time, we tax them. We take things away from them. We say less free time for you because you can't make good decisions. No allowance because you didn't do your chores. No, I'm not going to go buy you extra things at the store because you don't help out around the house. And you're not a pleasant child. You're going to get spanked. Okay? That would be viewed as a tax or a cost imposed on children for bad behavior, and then we give them allowances and good treatment if they behave well. The government, however, has it backwards. The government says if you go out in your business and you make a profit, if you're a private individual and you go out and make enough money to support yourself and your family and pay your bills, we will penalize you for that. We'll tax you. On the other hand, if you're a big business or a big bank especially, and you make bad loans or bad business decisions and you suffer losses, the government comes and subsidizes them for their bad decisions by bailing them out. People who don't work and don't make enough money to support their children, those people we subsidize. The government gives them checks. We commonly call it welfare or temporary assistance to needy families. Okay, Section 8 housing, food stamps. We'll subsidize bad behavior on behalf of the government and reward and penalize or tax good behavior. The next thing we have here is expectations of producers. Here I just say use common sense. So for example, let's say that you're a gasoline producer, and gas is selling for $2.30 a gallon right now. And I tell you, oh, there's going to be a war tomorrow. When you wake up in the morning, the price of gas is going to triple to $7 a gallon. In that case, a gasoline producer would say, whoa, I need to cut back on supply now and hold gas off the market at $2.30 so I can sell it tomorrow morning at $7. If I were a gas station owner, as soon as I realized that, I'd just shut the store down. I'd say, I'm not open till tomorrow morning. And then tomorrow morning, all the gas I have in my tank, I can sell at $7 and make a huge profit. So that's expectations of producers. Use common sense. Think about your wages would be another way. What if my boss told me, oh, if you work on Tuesday, I'll pay you $8 an hour, but if you work on Wednesdays, I'll pay you $12. More people would want to work on Wednesday, more labor would be supplied on Wednesdays, and less on Tuesdays. People say, I'd rather wait till Wednesday and work. Okay. Prices of goods, other goods the firm can produce. There is a direct, is that right? No, there's an inverse. This is inverse. I'll have to change that. Voila, it's changed. There's an inverse relationship between the prices of other goods the firm can produce and supply. A simple example of this is I can teach economics and business stat. I really love to teach economics. I like business stat. Miss Waits, our department chairman, she can teach economics or business stat. She likes to teach business stat more. So she teaches all the business stat classes, except I teach maybe one in the summer, and I teach almost all of the econ courses on campus. What if, and then we get paid the same no matter which class we teach, so we like to divide it up that way. What if, on the other hand, they decided to double what they pay for teaching a business stat class? So business stat classes now get paid twice as much as you would for an econ course. In that case, I would prefer to teach business stat classes. So if the price of business stat classes went up, I'd offer to teach fewer econ classes. They say, no, I really like business stat. Let me teach business stat because I really like money. So in that case, if the price of business statistics courses, what they paid for, went up, the supply of econ courses would go down. A more relevant example of this, something that you've all experienced, or you know, most of you haven't been driving long enough, but President Bush W, he wanted to promote green energy just like Obama did, and he came out with a plan to subsidize or to force gasoline companies to put 10% ethanol in the gas. Now, what that did was that dramatically increased the demand for corn. So corn prices went up. And when that happened, farms can produce corn or, let's say, beef cattle. So maybe you have your farm 50-50, 50% of it is beef cattle, 50% you're growing corn, then the price of corn shoots up. What that caused farmers to do was a lot of them plowed over pasture land and planted corn on it. By doing so, that increase in the price of corn caused them to plow up pasture land and put corn on it. That reduced the supply of beef cattle, and the price of beef went up. Beef, like say hamburger, used to be poor people food. Okay? Now you go and buy hamburger and it's $3-4 a pound. Okay? Because by increasing the price of corn with the ethanol rules on gasoline, that caused people to plow the farms up, plow the pastures up, and use them for corn, and that reduced the number of beef cattle we raised. We reduced the supply of beef, that caused the price of beef to go up, all other things being equal. So here, the price of corn and other good the farm can produce went up, that caused the supply of beef cattle to go down. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to bring supply and demand together in a market. A market is any arrangement in which buyers and sellers interact to determine the price and quantity of goods and services exchanged. We've talked about this already. Now, when we draw supply and demand together, we'll get what's called an equilibrium price. The equilibrium occurs where supply, always upward sloping and to the right if you ever get confused. Remember the word supply, it has the word up in it. Supply is the upward sloping curve. D, it stands for demand, it also stands for downward. So demand is the downward sloping curve. Because of the nature of the shapes of these curves, they always intersect at one and only one unique point. And we call this point the equilibrium point. And the price that equilibrium occurs at is a unique price, and we call that the equilibrium price. So in this example for tennis shoes, the equilibrium price is $60. Okay. Now, the equilibrium price is the price towards which the market tends. So through supply and demand, the market will force price towards this equilibrium price. Now, if we ever get there or not is a debate in economics, okay? And we've got three main groups. We have what we call the hermeneutics, what we call hermeneutics. We have the Austrians, those people who we're going to see Friday, right? If you're going on the extra credit trip. And we have the writers of your textbook, we call them neoclassicals. Okay. Now here, if you look here on my notepad, I've got the names of these three groups written. I'll put the cord out of the way for you. Okay. Now the Hermeneuticians, these guys believe that everybody has different logic. That you have your name logic, say Bill logic, and I have James logic, James Yowie logic more specifically, and someone else has Sally Jones logic. Everyone has their own different logic, and that there are basically no rules to economics, that markets just are random, there's no way of understanding them. They would say that the markets do not equilibrate, that we don't necessarily move towards equilibrium, and we're never in equilibrium. And this last part here is very reasonable. They say, well, in equilibrium, all trading stops. There are no mutually beneficial exchanges left. So do we ever get to that equilibrium? The answer would be no, they would say, because we always see people buying and selling things. Okay. We never get towards equilibrium because they would say that the law of supply, the law of demand aren't applicable. They're not real. Economies don't work that way. On the other hand, we have the neoclassicals. The neoclassicals believe that we have perfect information. So these guys think we know nothing about the real world and the market just does whatever it wants. These people here believe that we have perfect information. According to them, the markets instantly, I'm going to have to write this in a different pen. This one's running out of ink. I'll use green here. Okay. So for our neoclassical friends, they believe that markets instantly adjust. That if, say, a market equilibrium changes, that we immediately move from one equilibrium to another equilibrium, literally with nothing in between. And they would say that the market is always in equilibrium. This, of course, would mean that we never trade, okay? That everything's always, all mutually beneficial exchanges are exhausted. Now, I don't think any true neoclassical really believes that the markets are always in equilibrium and that when there's a change, they instantly adjust to it. But they treat the economy as though it does. And the reason for this is they ignore time and they believe that we possess what they call perfect information. There's different versions of this assumption, and it's an assumption. But one of them is that buyers and sellers possess equal information. It's called the softer version. Okay. So we don't know everything, but we all know the same thing. And that, of course, is ridiculous. Say you go to a car dealer. What do you ask the car dealer? Well, where did you get the car? Was it a turn-in? Was it a repo? Was it a rental that that they got just got sold back to the company? Where did the car come from? And we'll ask the salesperson about the car. What kind of gas mileage does this car get? If we did possess equal information between buyers and sellers, there would be no talking that went on at a sale. You'd just walk in, he'd hand it to you, say, I knew you were coming. And you'd say, oh, well, I already had the money transferred into your bank account. Thank you. Okay. The other version is we know everything. Now, in reality, do we know everything, and do buyers and sellers know, or do buyers and sellers know the exact same thing? The answer to those questions are clearly no. If we knew everything, no one would be sitting in a class. You'd be born and you'd know everything that mankind knows or could know, and you'd make your life decisions in that instant, and everything would be planned out for you. On the other hand, do we know the same things? And of course, the answer is no, because we talk to salespeople. We ask them questions. Okay? So those two extremes are pretty unrealistic. The Austrians, on the other hand, say we don't know nothing, like the Hermeneuticians, but we don't know everything. We know some things. So to the Austrians, markets tend towards equilibrium. And the reason they tend towards equilibrium generally, some will say all the time, some will say generally, is because when we buy a good or a service, we learn new things about ourselves and about the market and about the good or a service. That might make us more confident or less confident that this good or service will be able to satisfy a particular want or need in the future. To give you a quick example, I used to buy I used to be a Pepsi snob, okay? And whenever I would go to the store, I like Coke. I mean, I don't like Coke. I hate Coke. I think it's disgusting. I like Pepsi and I liked RC. Sometimes I would get a really good RC. Sometimes I would get a really bad one. It wouldn't taste good. To satisfy my need for good tasting caffeine, I would typically buy a Pepsi. The reason for that was, I guess their quality control is better. Every time I got a Pepsi, it tasted the same, good. On the other hand, when I would buy an RC, sometimes it was good, sometimes it was bad. Every time I'd buy an RC and it tasted good, that might increase my confidence in buying RCs. And each time I bought an RC and it was bad, that might decrease my confidence that RC could be useful to satisfy my desire for good tasting caffeine. So you can see here, every time we act, we learn. We become more confident or less confident about certain goods and services in the economy satisfying our wants and needs. As a result of that, every time we act, we learn something that changes supply and demand. It changes equilibrium. So equilibrium is constantly moving around and around, and when we make the right decisions, we're following after it, chasing it without ever getting to it. Now, we of course can make mistakes, which would be disequilibrating, but on the market, we're penalized for mistakes and rewarded for good decisions. Now, the Austrians would agree with the Hermeneuticians here that the market is never in equilibrium. We're constantly chasing it. My spelling might be off here. In fact, I know it is. Okay, never in equilibrium because we're constantly chasing equilibrium without ever getting there, and we never see a moment in human existence once we started trading till now where trading has ever stopped. So those are the views on equilibrium. To the neoclassicals, equilibrium's everything and always. To the hermeneuticians, it's never and never going towards it, while the Austrians say we tend towards it without ever getting there, because equilibrium is always changing, because every time we make a move towards equilibrium or away from it, we learn new things, and that changes supply and demand for these things and moves our equilibrium around, and we chase it. Okay, I hope you understood that. I normally do that in class, but this time we're not. So equilibrium is the price towards which the economy tends. There we go. And the equilibrium price is important because in equilibrium, quantity demanded is exactly equal to quantity supplied. This means there's no shortage and surplus. For every buyer, there's someone to sell it to them. For every seller, there's someone to buy the good from them at that equilibrium price. That equilibrium price is only one price. Of all the prices you could ever be, there's only one equilibrium price where quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. Now, the market forces us towards equilibrium here. Let's say this is a new tennis shoe that just came out, okay? And it's called the Air Favre. And Nike thinks it's going to be the greatest thing since sliced bread. Brett Favre played till he was old. You know, old people are going to want to buy these shoes so they think they can go out and play football and sports again. So they think they're going to sell really high at $90 a pop. At a price of $90 a piece, quantity supplied is out here at $3,000. So we trace the price, $90, over to supply, and we find out 3,000 pairs of these shoes will be produced and offered for sale on the market every month. But at a price of $90, tracing that over to the demand curve, only 1,000 pairs of shoes are demanded at that price. People are only willing and able to purchase 1,000 pairs of these shoes at a price of $90. So 3,000 are produced on the market, only 1,000 are bought. That would leave a surplus of 2,000 shoes. So Nike would be putting out 3,000 pairs of shoes every month, but only selling 1,000 of them. They'd be stacking up in the warehouse. There's no buyers for them at a price of $90. So what Nike would very quickly realize is we can't sell all the shoes we're producing at $90. We need to drop the price. As they drop the price, as the price comes down, this surplus goes away. As the price decreases, quantity demanded increases, right? The law of demand. As the price decreases, quantity supplied decreases, right? Direct relationship between price and quantity supplied, the law of supplied, and that brings us closer and closer to equilibrium. So if we overprice the good, that will cause a surplus, and that will force businessmen to drop the price. Otherwise, shoes are just going to pile up and pile up in their warehouses with no buyers, no one to buy them. We don't produce shoes to not be bought. We produce them to be bought. So businessmen will be forced by the market to drop the price. As they drop the price, we move closer to this equilibrium price. If we ever got there, the price would stop at $60. At $60, every shoe would have a buyer. Every buyer would have a shoe to buy at that equilibrium price of $60. And we abbreviate this with a P star. Okay, so if you ever see P star, that's the equilibrium price. That's where quantity supplied is exactly equal to quantity demanded. That occurs at one unique point where the supply and the demand curves cross. So what if we did the other thing? Let's say news comes out about Brett Favre being a dirty pervert, right? And they say, oh, Brett, you ruined it. This is going to be so great. Now no one's going to want to buy your shoes. We're just going to clear some off. We're going to drop the price down to $30. At a price of $30, Nike will only supply 1,000 pairs of these shoes per month. But look what happens to quantity demanded. Trace that $30 over to the demand curve, and look what happens. Consumers are willing and able to buy 3,000 pairs per month of these shoes. They'll say, yeah, Brett Favre's a pervert, but they're really great sneakers for $30. I want them. So in this case, quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied, and we have a shortage. So at a price of $30, quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied. There are more people willing and able to purchase the shoes than there are pairs of shoes available for them to buy. You'll notice there's a shortage when you see lines and waiting lists and rain checks for something. Okay. In this case, Nike would very quickly realize I can sell all of the shoes I'm producing at a price of $30, and there's still 2,000 more people screaming for the shoes, wanting to pay $30 for them. I can sell my shoes at a higher price and still sell them all. So in that case, the firm will raise their price. As you raise the price, quantity supplied increases. As you raise the price, quantity demanded, decreases as price goes up, and that will move us back towards equilibrium. Whether or not we ever get there is a different question. Okay, so you can see here how the market forces us towards equilibrium. When we make a mistake, overcharge or undercharge, if we overcharge, that causes a surplus. Quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded. More shoes are supplied on the market than people are willing and able to purchase. That causes these shoes to pile up in stock rooms. Firms will realize to sell all these shoes, we have to drop the price. As they drop the price, quantity supplied decreases, quantity demanded increases, and that moves us back towards equilibrium and eliminates the the surplus. And the opposite occurs during a shortage. If we charge too little for them, quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied. That causes a shortage of 2,000 pairs of shoes per month. Nike will realize I can still sell all these shoes and raise the price. Why not? As they raise the price, quantity supplied increases, quantity demanded decreases, and that eliminates the shortage, forces us back towards equilibrium. This leads us to the belief that there can be no prolonged shortages or surpluses on a free market. The market will eliminate shortages and surpluses through the price system. And that is a mechanism that uses the forces of supply and demand to create an equilibrium, or at least to move us towards equilibrium through rising and falling prices. That is the end of this lecture. There's one more short one on Chapter 4 for micro classes and a short one on Chapter 15 for macro classes. Thank you very much. Have a great day and enjoy the quiz.